It's Locked On Giants Live with Traina, Taina, and Dog coming your way next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL for a first deposit up to $100. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Giants Live. You got me, Patricia Traina. We got the Taina, and we got the Dog, the Dream Team, as some of you call us. So we are back. We are here to talk about Giants football. Not the greatest topic in the world, given how this team has been playing. But you know what? We always have a good time when we get together, the three of us. And Taina, of course, is back after missing last week. And Dog, of course, is here ready to rock and roll. And we're happy to see all of you who are in the chat. And guys, what can we say about the Giants, man? I mean,
is it over yet? Excited to be back. Obviously, last week, I went to Bill Burr. That was great, but excited to be back talking Giants with both you guys. Always love doing the show with you guys, and there's not much to say. I think at this point, it feels to me that the defense is kind of folded because they see the writing on the wall. Like, the defense definitely looked like they were hitting another gear there for about 3 weeks or so, and the last 2 weeks, it does kind of feel like to me a defense that's kind of, they're fed up. They're like, we got now our third string quarterback out there. We can't compete every week. So it just feels like, unfortunately, this team is headed towards a top 2 or 3 draft pick. Like, it's bad.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, there's not too much doubt in these games that they go in. There's really not anticlimactic before you even kick off. I mean, you're not going to get much of anything. You put out the injury report every week, Patty, and every week it's terrible to see what we got going on. So there's just not much hope at this point. You just grin and bear it, I guess. I don't know what to say. This has been one hellacious season, to say the least.
Yeah, probably one of the worst seasons. And, just when I think I've seen the worst season I'm ever going to see, they find a way to top themselves. And this year, no exception. And guys,
I thought 2021 was it, but I think you're right, Patty. This might top it.
This step, well, only because of the expectations. And, let's kind of start there in the discussion. Let's go back to last year. I mean, we all got excited, 9-7-1. They made the playoffs. Yeah. Everybody got excited. They were able to do all this stuff with limited resources. Then they get into this past offseason. They add Waller, Hyatt. They have that draft class. We all get excited. We hear the reports coming out of, the spring practices, training camp, and we're thinking, oh, we're going to be good. We're going to, we've closed the gap. And then this happens. Do you think in retrospect, guys, that maybe last year was a bit of a mirage?
I mean, it's hard to argue against that at this point. I think I think it's a little bit of just everything's going wrong this year. And last year was a bit of a mirage. But I don't think this team is as bad as they've appeared this year. I think they're better than this. But, yeah, I mean, last year, how could you argue against it at this point? The team was really 9-6-1. I don't even count the last week when we played our backups against the Eagles. We were a 9-6-1 football team last year. This team doesn't appear to be anywhere near that. And, yeah, you could say that we played a softer schedule last year, but we beat some pretty good teams. Like, the Packers were decent. The Ravens were good. We beat the Titans on the road. So we had the Vikings were a good win in the playoffs. So we beat some pretty good teams. So, yeah, I mean, how could you say it isn't at this point? But I think there's more to it than just that. I just feel like, I don't know. I just feel like it's collapsing with the injuries. I feel like they put more on Daniel Jones's plate this year, and they were banking on the line to look better. They were banking on Jones to pick up the playbook better in year 2, and everything has just failed. The coaching's been much worse. It's just a culmination of everything.
Yeah, everything went backwards. They did ask Daniel Jones to do more this year, and he couldn't. like we were talking to Chris last night. It's just, after beating Minnesota, obviously losing to the Eagles was a sour taste, but the Eagles are better than us. You hate it, but you can live with it. You're like, that team's just way better, but we were getting there. We knew we weren't there yet. We knew we weren't ready to compete with them yet. But you felt like you were taking a step towards them, and that this was a year, hey, maybe we can go in and actually compete with these damn guys. So we we felt good for about 7 months. And 6 minutes into that Dallas game, it all went up in smoke.
Yeah.
We never recovered. I don't think you could get a worse beating and a worse wake up to reality than that game. And they have never recovered from it. That just, it is like it took all their confidence away. Any confidence that team had, even when they beat Arizona, you thought maybe they would turn it around, but then the injury started and, they lost to San Fran, and then they came home and they got blown out by Seattle. That was kind of the end for me. When they couldn't beat Seattle at home, I was kind of like, you know what, this ain't it. And it hasn't been at all.
Yeah, that was definitely disappointing. But you know what, guys, and disclaimer, I'm going to do a podcast on this during the bye week. I'm going to look at all the things, the airing of the grievances, all the ways that the Giants, Seinfeld reference there. That's for you, Eli. Not that Eli watches this show, but all the ways that the Giants, in my opinion, when they put this roster together and they got ready for the 2023 season, how they came up short. I want to ask you guys, if you had to point to one big thing, and injuries, let's throw injuries out. I know that's a big thing, but if you go back and you look at how this team was put together, what's the one thing that really sticks in your craw about what either a decision they made or didn't make?
Just for this year, you're talking about, not since
just for this year.
I'm not going to say the quarterback because I know that's a popular answer. No matter what they did at the quarterback this year, this team was going to be a mess. There was no, Tyrod Taylor, whoever, it wasn't whatever. So for me, I'm trying to think of one individual. I mean, ideally, I think the Giants probably, in hindsight, I don't know if it would have saved the season. I don't think it would have, but it would have made it look better. They probably should have tried to sign an established interior offensive lineman this offseason. The interior offensive line has been a disgrace. So ideally something like that, but I just think everything they did, I can't really even argue with their offseason plan. It just hasn't worked. But I didn't hate what they did this offseason. It just hasn't worked. The Waller trade, they didn't trade too much. Right? They got a guy that they felt could be a stopgap option. They signed a bunch of guys to 1-year deals that were stopgap options, and it hasn't worked out. But I guess an interior offensive lineman, if I could pick one spot.
Yeah, it's tough because you look at the moves they made in the offseason and the draft, and we felt pretty good about it. Darren Waller was supposed to bring a weapon at the tight end spot. Obviously, his health was a concern, and now it's reared its ugly head again. But if he's healthy, that's a pretty good target. You get speed, like flat out track speed, runaway speed, and Jalen Hyatt, who, in my estimations, played well. There's just no quarterback that could get the guy the ball. He's been behind the defense numerous times, and somebody either underthrows him or they don't see him or whatever the case may be. But I feel like Hyatt, if we get a quarterback that can get him the ball, can be a very good weapon on the outside. You bring back Isaiah Hodgins, which why wouldn't you? I mean, he and Daniel Jones seem to have a great rapport. He brought back Slayton on a pretty cheap deal. He brought Shepard back. That was really for coaching, in my opinion. I don't think Shep was ever going to be a difference maker in the offense. And you brought in a Paris Campbell, where you're like, you know what? He had a really good year in Indy. We can get him with these other guys. He could be a weapon underneath with Wandale. And you're thinking, the passing game could be pretty good. I don't know what linemen are out there to be had.
Exactly.
And then they addressed the defense. They brought in Bobby Okereke, which I felt like was a big signing. You added Ashawn Robinson, and Nacho. You bulked up your interior offensive line because that's where you got pushed around. And like Chris said, everything went wrong. Like Murphy's Law. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. So it's just it's bad luck and it's bad play and bad coaching. Everybody took a step back this year, but maybe come April, it'll be a blessing in disguise, and a lot of things change, and So do the Giants.
All right.
Yeah.
The big thing for me is coaching. That took a
I agree with that.
major step backwards.
Yo,
And let me
for
just say that yes, there are injuries involved, and yes, they are playing with guys that they didn't anticipate they would be playing with. But just as we saw last year, good coaching staffs figure out a way to make it work. You adjust what you're doing to the talent you have or what you don't have. I don't feel that this coaching staff this year has done that. You know, look at the offense. The offense is ranked at or near the bottom in just about every macro category there is. The defense is falling fast in every macro category there is. Special teams have been a mess. When was the last time special teams has made a difference for this club?
Awful.
Right. So just across the board. And then you look at Dable's, he's 0 for 3 in challenges. You look at the lack of aggressiveness. You look at some of the decisions he made. You look at how he got this team ready to play by basically running a country club in the summer and the spring. You look at some of the mishaps on the operations, you know, like with 11 guys, 12 guys on the field or 10 guys out on the field, little things like that. And you just say, what happened to this coaching staff that was so good last year?
Yeah.
And now you're looking at the possibility of all 3 coordinators potentially being replaced.
Yeah, I was actually going to make that point. Your question was, at least the way I interpreted it, was, what would you have done differently this offseason? I wouldn't have done anything different with the coaching staff coming in because we had a really good year with the coaching staff. But in terms of what's the biggest overall reason why this team has disappointed as much as they have, I do think the coaching staff is the answer to that, above everything else. And yeah, I think Dable has not coached the same way he did last year. And I see T ask a good question. She says, why would coaching take a major step backward? Did they get stupid or what? What I think, this is just my theory, at least early in the season, this is my theory with what happened with the coaching staff. I think the Giants brought back Daniel Jones, second year in the scheme, at least from an offensive standpoint. And they said, we're gonna open this up. We're going to open this up. We're going to have Daniel Jones do a lot more this year than we did last year. And we were all excited as fans. You get Darren Waller, you get Jalen Hyatt. You're like, oh, Evan Neal's going to get better. But the team, once the team looked like you couldn't open up the offense, I don't feel like they adjusted enough. That's my answer. They didn't play to the strengths of this roster. They thought the strengths were going to be better than what it ended up being. The offensive line was a mess. Evan Neal was bad. Daniel Jones did not read progressions quickly enough. So that's my theory. I'm not there. I'm not the coach, but that's my theory. I don't think they adjusted enough off of what their initial game plan was going into the year.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I made a point. I think that defenses did adjust to what the Giants did last year. They got the ball out of Daniel Jones's hand quick. They were decisive throws. They were safe passes. He was kind of a game manager. And I think defenses saw that. They may have known Daniel Jones on film, but they didn't really know Brian Dable's system, seeing that he came from the AFC, and a lot of those teams didn't see us. So he was able to get away with a lot of that. And once defenses got some film on what their game plan was and what their offensive scheme was, when they saw him, they made that adjustment, saying, listen, man, they ain't beating us over the top. They don't throw the ball deep. Make them throw the ball deep. That offensive line sucks. So make them have some routes. Take that quick pass away, make them sit back there and get nervous. And they did, like you said, they never readjusted. It's almost like Chris mentioned in a sort of a way was, I feel like maybe they overestimated the talent that they had, and they expected it to be a lot better than it was. They coached it thinking it was better than it was, when in essence, it was about the same as it was last year. But they tried to,
they tried to evolve.
Lemonade out of lemons. It didn't work. It just hasn't worked.
Here's something that I don't understand, and maybe somebody can explain it to me. So, okay, I get it that Saquon missed a handful of games with a sprained ankle, but Daniel Jones had him for a couple of games. All right. Then back then, it's like they went away from the run. They just tried to open it up so much. Then, you bring in these Tyrod Taylor, you bring in Tommy DeVito, and now all of a sudden, let's run with, let's put it all on Saquon. Why weren't they doing that more in the beginning of the year? I mean, that goes back to what I was saying. Were they just looking to be a passing offense?
No, I
And
think that's exactly what it is, Patty. I think that's what it was. I think they went into this year with a mission to start the season. You saw it in preseason. The first drive with Darren Waller, all they did was throw. Now, ironically, the first drive of the season against the Dallas Cowboys, all they did was run, and they had tremendous success. But then, and then
and
obviously
they moved away.
it went to hell. But then they got away from that. I just feel like they got too far away from what this team, because they're not very talented, if we're being honest. The offensive line did not evolve as much as we were hoping. The quarterback did not evolve as much as we were hoping. The wide receivers are not the best of the best. They didn't play to the limited strengths of this offense like they did last year.
Yeah, I agree. And just other things about the decisions they made, the handling of injured players, for example. Andrew Thomas pulls his hamstring, and I don't know about you, but I consider him the team's most important player on the offensive side. He goes down, you're screwed. All right. So if he pulls his hamstring, why was he allowed to continue on in that game? I look at the Graham Gano situation. Gano was clearly compromised. And some people will say, well, he made a field goal earlier. He was booming kickoffs in the end zone. But it was clear he was starting to, that leg was starting to bother him. Some of the way they have handled these injuries, I'm perplexed.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, and the way they handled Daniel Jones with the quarterback sneak off the neck injury, leaving him in the game against the Dallas Cowboys when there's been a lot of questionable decisions from Brian Daboll this year. And I'm still a Daboll fan. I'm like I said from the beginning, he's still getting 4 years for me. Same as Joe Shane. And I know some people want to run him out of town, but you also got to be honest. And I do think it's very fair to be critical of Daboll this year. He's young. He's still a young coach, and hopefully this is a stepping stone for him. But he just feels like I think the biggest thing last year for this team, why this team exceeded expectations as much as they did, was the culture. Brian Daboll instilled confidence into this team from the jump. Week 1, we're going for 2. I believe in you guys. It hasn't felt like all year, for the most part, that Daboll has had confidence in his players. And that goes a long way. I think it went a long way last year for this team.
Yeah, I mean, that first game, Carl Banks mentioned it. Probably shot at Daniel Jones' confidence. And I don't think it was just Daniel Jones. I think the team believed its hype. I think the team believed they'd close the gap on Dallas. I think the team believed they were going to beat Dallas. And they went out, they got smacked around, and that game was over before you could get your seat warm. It was done. And they never responded. And then even the next week in Arizona, who was a team that people assume were going to tank, and they're not good. I mean, they compete. They play hard. I mean, they've lost some close games. They lost close game to us, close game to Washington. They did beat Dallas. They won last week. So they're still not good. We were getting shot out 20-0. We were outscored 60-0 the first 6 quarters. That's why people are like, oh, well, Daniel Jones didn't have Saquon Barkley. I'm like, well, he had him the first 6 quarters of the year, and they didn't score a point.
Yeah.
So there's just many questions. And I felt that early in the year, and I said, I just can't put my finger on it, but there's just something different about this team. The pulse of the team is different. And even going back to the preseason when Brian Daboll, their media was talking, asking about how the guys are looking, and do you feel confident about this? And you got these guys and Waller and all this. And he said, well, every year is different. And every year has adversity. We have to see how he handles adversity. It's almost like he knew there was adversity in there. Then again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm going to keep going back to there's just certain things that I wonder. How much did Mara? I know Carl Banks said Mara doesn't have any influence on it, but it's just weird to me how you give Daniel Jones that big contract and you're leaving him in there down 40-0. And then he comes out and says, well, we just wanted to get some confidence. Well, I'm calling BS because you have all your backups in there with Jones. It doesn't make sense at all. What confidence are you building? And then even this week, Patty, they're down 49-10. Just to end the game. What is the point of getting a meaningless touchdown? You run 12 plays, you take all your timeouts, and they're hell-bent on getting Shepard a touchdown. What is this about? So you lose 49-10 or 49-17? Why are we dropping Tommy DeVito back a number of times? It just, his decision-making, Daboll's decision-making this year is a head-scratcher, challenging the first play of that game when it was obvious that he was down. It just reeks of desperation, and I just don't. I don't know what happened there.
He's starting to think. To me, he's starting to think more emotionally than logically at this point as a coach.
Yeah.
And I think that challenge, the first play of the game or whatever it was, the first drive of the game.
And then
it's just that was an emotional decision. He wasn't thinking logically.
And then you say to yourself, he tried to pick it up and say, "Oh, never mind." It's like, Brian, don't you know the rules? Because the rules say once you throw that flag, the challenge has to go through, and he just pissed away a timeout, and it's like,
a challenge.
What are you thinking?
And a challenge.
And
it's like in 2021 when Joe Judge threw the challenge flag on a touchdown. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? They review all scoring plays. You can't challenge that. Don't you know the rules, Joe? Which led to my soundbite. You run laps, Joe. You run laps, which everybody loved because when they messed up, he made them run laps. And I was like, you need to run laps because you screwed up,
Seriously, man.
It's weird. It's been a weird, the players get hurt and everything else and a lot of bad luck. It happens. I get it. But Daboll's coaching going backwards, that's a real head scratcher to me. That
was my biggest reason going into the year, even with the harder schedule, where I said to myself, and obviously I didn't expect Andrew Thomas to get hurt and Barkley to get hurt and Jones to get hurt.
Waller to get hurt.
It's why I did expect him to get hurt, if I'm being honest. But the biggest reason why I went into the year being like, I think we're going to win at least 7 or 8 games is because I believed in the coaching staff. And I said, when we're going up against teams that were at least semi-comparable in terms of talent, that's not every team on our schedule, but there's 9-10 teams that are, we stand a good chance to win all those games because I think we're usually going to have the edge with the coaching staff. This year we haven't. Our coaching, it starts with Daboll, has not been good. And I think there's going to be changes there. I don't think it'll be with Daboll, but I think the coordinators might be replaced.
I was going to say, speaking of which, which coordinators do you think are definitely not going to be back? And let's even extend it to the position coaches. I mean, I did a segment yesterday on the show. I said I could see a scenario where all 3 coordinators are not back. I think Bobby Johnson is in danger. And Mike Groh, I look at Mike Groh, the receivers coach, because the receivers haven't really developed. Jalen Hyatt, I know they were working to get him more involved, but they haven't, and I'm just trying to think, who else might they move on from? So what do you guys think?
I think you start with Johnson. He's going to be gone. I think we've known that for a while. I'd be surprised if he's back. McGahee, the special teams coordinator, there's no reason to keep him. He was a hold me over anyway. He wasn't a guy that you brought in here. The special teams has not performed nearly as well as we were hoping as Giants fans this year. So I think both those guys are gone. I think Kafka's gone. I do. I think Kafka's gone. And my theory for this, Patty, is I don't even necessarily think Kafka deserves a lot of the hate that he's getting. I really don't. He's got a really tough situation with all the injuries that they've had. I think they tried to open up the playbook, and I don't know how much of that's on Daboll. I don't know how much of that's on Kafka. But when I think about this from Daboll's perspective, and that's really the way that I try to think of things when I predict what's going to happen in the offseason, from the GM's perspective, from the head coach's perspective. If you're Brian Daboll, next year you're on the clock. Because if we end up drafting a quarterback, which I think a lot of us think we're going to, if we have a top 2 or 3 pick, you live and die with that quarterback. And if I'm Brian Daboll, and I'm known to be a guy that was a great play caller, like that's my strength, I'm living and dying with me calling the plays. So that's what I think is going to happen, and that's why I think it's going to happen. I think Kafka will be gone.
And potentially you save Wink then, if that, for as bad as the defense has been of late, that could just be them. I don't know. Maybe they're mailing it in. Although, well, actually, let me hear from Dog first, because then I've got a question for you guys about the defense. So, Dog, you go ahead and weigh in.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Kafka will be gone. Because Chris and I talked about this last night too. I think they're taking a quarterback. I don't care what these rumors are that John Mara is telling the whole time with Daniel Jones. John Mara can't be doing this stuff, because if John Mara does that, and he's pretty much taking Joe Shane's ability to draft the team or pick his players, Joe Shane's going to say, well, the hell with you. I'm leaving then. I'm not going to stay here. You're not going to tell me what to do. I'm the GM. And Daboll, same thing. They'll be like, you know what? I resign. I'll go somewhere else where they'll let me pick my quarterback. Daniel Jones, they had to sign him. It was the right move. And I think that they did it the right way. I think they signed him so they could get out after 2 years if something like this happened. If he did get hurt, if the neck injury happened, or he did regress or whatever it was. And we talked about it last night. If I'm Dable and I'm getting a quarterback, I don't want my job in someone else's hands. I don't want Kafka. I want the responsibility. You know what? Yep. I'm going down with the ship. If I screw up, it's on me. I don't want to be like, oh God, say they draft Caleb Williams, because I'm manifesting that. But they say they draft Caleb Williams and he doesn't play well with Kafka calling plays because Kafka's just not calling plays to his strengths or whatever. It makes Dable look bad. And then when
on top of that, BadDog, you start doing to Caleb Williams what you did to Daniel Jones.
Right.
You have a quick shift with the play caller earlier in his rookie year.
Right.
All of a sudden, you got a new guy in his ear. To me, get it off on the right foot. If I'm in Dable's situation, I know I'm going to live and die with this quarterback. I'm calling the plays from day one with this quarterback.
And then the other thing is, if he did come back and he did start calling plays, and 3 weeks in, Dable's like, you're done. Then you got some tension between the coach, because then what does Kafka do?
Yeah.
You don't want to fire him in the middle of the year. So it's just better that he just walks. And I'm okay with Wink. I don't hate Wink. I know the defense has been bad, but you saw for a month when, Tyrod was in there and Jones was not out for the year, they played very hard. And I don't want to say they mailed it in because I don't know. I can't sit there and go, yeah, they're not trying. I don't know if they're trying or not. I can't speculate. But when Tommy DeVito is your quarterback, and listen, Tommy's a nice story. I'm going to root for Tommy. He's an Italian guy. Of course I'm going to root for him. Paisan, I'm sure Tommy likes some cannolis. I'm sure if Tommy was on the panel, he'd talk about food, but it's Tommy DeVito. He's not supposed to be your starting quarterback. So when Tommy DeVito is your starting quarterback, and the defense is probably thinking, the hell's the difference? We're not going to score. Right. So why are we going to go out there and kill ourselves knowing if we give up 7 points, game's probably over? So who knows? The attitude's just bad. It's 2-8. Saquon Barkley came out and said, well, we're not miserable. Our lives aren't miserable. There's a lot of joy in here. And I get it. Saquon's going to say the right things. And I'm not telling you need to be miserable, but there certainly should be no joy when you're 2-8. There just shouldn't be. There should not be any happiness about being 2-8. If you're a professional athlete, that should make you mad.
Yeah. And I think he also said it doesn't feel like they're 2-8.
Yes.
And by the way, I see the questions popping up in the chat box. Hold on to the questions. We're going to get to them a little later. But guys, let me ask you this. I want to go back to the defense for a second, because I think the feeling is that Wink is probably the safest of the three. But let me ask you this.
Safest, I would say Dable's the safest of the three.
I mean, I'm talking of the coordinators.
Of the two. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, three. McKay, Kaplan.
I'm sorry. Special teams. My mistake. I'm sorry. Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you this about the defense here. The last couple of weeks, the defense has gone south. Coincides with the trade of Leonard Williams. How much are they missing Leonard Williams, in your opinion? How much of an effect has that had on this defense?
Wow. That's a good point you bring up that I honestly haven't thought about, because I think it's been a huge emotional response with this defense because of what BadDog was saying with Tommy DeVito and the team falling apart. But it's a good point you bring up. You go back and watch all the highlights of the Cowboys game. Everybody, I saw a license plate guy posting it, I think. Dex Lawrence is getting triple teamed almost every play. I think he had a tweet where he said 1,000 pounds on 300 pounds or whatever he said. And if Leo was here, maybe we wouldn't be facing those triple teams. So that's a good point that you bring up that I haven't thought about, because I've just gotten to a point where I feel like the defense has kind of just quit. But maybe Leo not being there does have a pretty significant impact. And Leo was a good player, and he makes other players around him better. But Dexter still looked really good. But Kayvon, not so much the last couple of weeks. So maybe you're right.
Kayvon's been banged up, though, to be fair.
Yeah, but what I will say, Patty, is I'm indifferent with Wink. Whether he comes back or not, I don't think he should be fired. I think he should be back. And I think that, and I've talked about this with BadDog on our show last night, and we brought it up again, that if Dable's going to be a guy that is going to focus pretty much exclusively on the offense next year, which if he's going to be calling the plays, that's more, that's what he's going to be doing. You want a guy that is a really good defensive coordinator, a guy that you could trust. So I would prefer Wink to come back, a guy that's been here for the last couple of years.
Right.
But I'm kind of at wit's end where I'm like, well, if the team wins 3 or 4 games and the defense looks horrible down the stretch, if they decide to fire him because they think there's somebody better for what they're trying to mold, it's whatever for me. It's not like I'm going to be crying if they fire Wink Martindale. The team's been awful.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that I would. I mean, the more I think about it, Wink, as bad as the defense has been of late, I question again the Leo effect. I question, they were supposed to have Azeez Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeau as their outside linebackers, and it hurt them that they didn't have a third legitimate pass rusher. You had a young defensive secondary. So, if we're going to say, okay, next year Dable's going to take on the play calling, assuming that they draft a quarterback and they move on from Kafka, wouldn't you want the defensive coordinator to be somebody who can run it and doesn't
Ideally, yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm thinking that can make some sense. And speaking of coordinators, I saw a couple people ask about this. Initially, Dable wanted Ken Dorsey. At least that was the report a couple of years ago when Dable was hired to be his offensive coordinator. Now that Ken Dorsey's available, how would you guys feel about him coming down? Maybe not taking an active play caller role, but that pseudo offensive coordinator being involved in the structure of the game plan, and then Dable maybe handling the play calling if they go with a new quarterback?
Yeah, I think that's what it's going to be. I don't know if it'll be him, but he obviously makes sense. There's been a lot of chatter about it, ties to Buffalo, but I think that's what it's going to be. It's going to be like with Shermer and Shula. Like Shermer had an offensive coordinator, but we all knew that Shermer was the guy that was running the offense. So whoever it is, whoever they bring in, that's what I expect to happen. I saw somebody in the chat ask earlier when we were talking about this, why would they have to fire Kafka if Dable's going to call the plays? And
demotion.
And you're right. Technically, they wouldn't. But would Kafka be happy with that? Does that look good on his resume? It's a demotion. So that doesn't look very good for Kafka, right?
No.
So if you're Kafka, you'd probably rather just get a fresh start, even if it meant you weren't even calling the play somewhere else. You wouldn't be demoted. And maybe you get an opportunity maybe to be a college coach or whatever. So that's why I just think all signs point to Kafka being replaced.
To go back to your point on Leo, I never thought about that, honestly. I didn't think he'd make that much of a difference on defense, but not so much on the field. I think in the locker room. I know Dexter Lawrence was pretty upset when Leo got traded because he said, I spent all this time with the guy, you're right next to him, and they obviously had a really good rapport. They're really good friends. So you lose that. It is a business at the end of the day, but you definitely build relationships with your teammates. And Leonard seemed like a great guy. Seemed like everybody loved me. Never heard anything bad about Leonard in the media, of his attitude or anything like that. And McKinney certainly questioned it when they traded him, and that was another thing. There was some dissension there. I thought we were trying to win. Why are we getting rid of Leonard Williams? So perhaps there was. Perhaps that was, the defense looked at it like, okay, we're waving the white flag. We just got rid of one of our best defensive players. We're not trying to win here, so the hell with it. We're just going to go out there and go through the motions, and we'll play the season out, and we'll come back next year, and we'll go at it then. But right now, what's the point of playing? Our quarterback's Tommy DeVito. You traded one of the best defensive players in the league. We're 2-8, getting killed every week. What's the point? So, one can only speculate, but that's a great point because I never thought about the impact of what the trading Leo had, and it definitely did in a negative way.
Dexter was definitely upset about it. There were a few guys that were upset about it. They were confused about it, and then it came out. It's interesting. That story came out about how Shane went to Leo and basically said, hey, we've got this offer. We weren't actively shopping you, but what do you think? That, a couple people said to me that was a save face type of move to leak that out in the locker room, to save face, to say, hey, look, we weren't actively looking to move Leo, but this offer came along and we went to him. But some guys, from what I understand, were like, well, if you got the offer, you should have never even considered it. Why did you even bring it up to Leo? And, I kind of get what Shane was trying to do. And I'm not saying there was any underhandedness involved there, but it was a weird scenario. And a lot of, I spoke to a couple guys about it, off the record, and they were confused. One guy even suggesting there was a conspiracy involved, which I thought was kind of crazy, but
I mean, I get it as a player, you're a competitor and you always think the team has a chance. But if you're thinking about it from a level head, like, how could you not understand why Shane did what he did? I mean, the team was at the time, they were 2-6. I think Jones was already hurt, wasn't he?
Believe so.
Yeah, so Jones was already hurt. You were 2-6.
No, because he came back.
Well, he had the neck, didn't he?
He had the neck, but he
Oh,
came
so
back.
he didn't have the
He didn't have the
okay.
knee.
It was the
Right,
week
right.
after Leo got traded because that's when the defense said, "Screw it."
Right.
It was against the Raiders.
Right.
They didn't even come out against it. Against
Either way, like you have to see the writing on the wall at that point. Like,
of course.
so I get it. You don't want the team to feel like they're folding shop, and if I was a player, I would definitely feel deflated. But I think at the same time, you have to be like, okay, obviously, I understand why the Giants are doing what they're doing.
Yeah,
that's just my opinion. I mean, I'm not a player. I'm not in that locker room, but that's just the way.
Right.
I think McKinney wants out. I think that's
no question.
Vocal. I don't think he wants to come back here. And I'm going to be honest. It's ironic because last year Daboll did such a good job. You hear all these players come out saying, "I want to play for Daboll. I want to play." Even not that we're going to ever get Gronkowski, but he's like, "I'll come out of retirement to play for Daboll." Like they want to do. Like the players worked their ass off for him last year. They were not talented, but they fought every second of every game, and they gave everything they could for him. This year, it's almost like it's the opposite. It's like they give an effort, and then as soon as something bad goes wrong, something bad happens. Like, the hell with this. I'm not.
They played great complimentary football last year. Like the offense was able to maintain drives. They kept the defense fresh, and the defense closed out games. And they got away from that this year. They got way too far away from that this year. And then the injuries it just compiled and it blew up.
Here's an interesting thought. And I was thinking about this because I always look at the salary cap and stuff like that. By extending by extending Lawrence and Thomas and getting those guys out of the way, they have a nice chunk of change available for next year. So really the only contract, if they're going to splurge, would be for Saquon. And I don't even think they splurged there. So I kind of like the approach Shane took with getting some of those other contracts extended before they ran out and they hit free agency. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. I don't expect any major splashes this year in free agency. Maybe
an offensive line or something.
Maybe an offensive lineman. Maybe a pass rusher. But
in my opinion, of course, there's the Twitter wars every day, and I'm right on the front line of that, baby, because I don't care. Bring it on. I'll take all the smoke. I don't really care. To me, I want a quarterback, and I know there's people like, "Oh, you can't have a quarterback without the offensive line." The reason Daniel Jones stinks because the offensive line, and I'm not saying the offensive line is any good. We got to address the offensive line. I got to draft linemen. I hear this all the time. But we've drafted tons of linemen. And guess what? They ain't working. So you know what? Instead of drafting a lineman, how about you get one that's established? You already have what's supposed to be your two bookend tackles and your center. We know Andrew Thomas is great. He's got to stay healthy. JMS had a shoulder injury from that stupid tush push thing, but he seemed like he's okay.
Yeah.
Evan Neal has not been good, but I refuse.
And he's hurt.
Right? And I refuse to give up on Evan Neal. I think that's coaching. Evan Neal's too talented. But even so, if he doesn't end up being your tackle, maybe move him inside. It worked with Eric Flowers. We didn't move him inside, but Washington did, and it worked for him. He wasn't a fantastic guard, but he was better. Also worked for Justin Pugh. He wasn't a great right tackle out of Syracuse. They moved him to guard. He became a pretty damn good guard.
Yeah.
So there's options there. But my point is they've taken a lot of swings at the O-line, and it is not working. So get somebody that's established and use your draft capital somewhere else. People are always like, "Oh, quarterback is not a sure thing." No kidding. We don't know what Drake May will be. We don't know what Caleb Williams will be. We don't know what Michael Penix will be or anybody else you want. We do know what Daniel Jones is. So if you think you can build a Super Bowl caliber team around Daniel Jones by the time his contract ends, then by all means stay with him. But if you'd rather think you can build a Super Bowl winning team by 2029 when a rookie contract ends and you're not giving all that money to the rookie quarterback, then you go that route. So because the ultimate goal is to win a Super Bowl. If you don't think you can win a Super Bowl with Daniel Jones by 2026, you better get rid of him, because what are you going to do at the end of 2026? Then you're going to go, "Well, we're going to get a quarterback now." Well, you might not be in the situation to draft one like we weren't last year. You never know. People are like, "Oh, you can get a quarterback around 2." And Chris is vehement about when you like a guy, you take him. It don't matter where you take him. If you love a guy, you grab him, because you don't know if you're going to get the opportunity to get that guy again. You don't know.
Exactly.
Patty, I had so many people. I had a guy on Twitter ask me that question, And I had so many people call me stupid. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it happens.
Somebody asked me, would you trade the first pick for the number 2 and 5 pick? And my answer in response was, if I love the quarterback and he was above, but like, if it's not neck and neck and I love a quarterback, I'm not trading that pick for anything.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, I don't think about it from points on a draft chart if I'm Joe Shane. I think about it like, if I trade down, I'm not putting my job on the line for my second favorite quarterback in this draft class if I have an opportunity to take my favorite quarterback.
Exactly.
And if you have an opportunity to take your favorite quarterback in a draft class and you feel like he's a transcendent player, I agree with BadDog. It's obvious. It's the most important position. Rome's not going to be built in a day, and this quarterback will fail. Like Carl Banks has said, if we don't build up the offensive line properly and we don't support this quarterback like we've supported the best, it might be a prettier failure if he's a better quarterback, but he's still going to fail. Like, we need to build up the team. There's not going to be a magician that comes in. But if you have an opportunity to improve that position, you do it, especially if it's what you project to be a huge improvement.
And then everybody on Twitter talking to me about Daniel Jones this, Daniel Jones that, or like the giant, the offensive line this, and I'm like, I did a video on this. I did a video on how the Giants ruined Daniel Jones. That's what I feel. And I know that you make a video, not everybody that follows you on Twitter, not all of your subscribers, not everybody's going to see the video. So sometimes you have to reiterate, listen, I think Daniel Jones can succeed in the NFL, just not here, because they didn't build around his talent. His talent. They didn't build around his weaknesses. They didn't build around his weaknesses. They didn't fix that. If he's slow at progressing or slow going through reads, you need to do everything you can to protect him, to give him that extra quarter of a second to locate guys down the field. They didn't do that. They didn't give him the players he needed to succeed here. He needs better players. People like he needs better receivers. He needs better line. And I agree, because he does not have the capability to be an elite guy that doesn't need everything to be great around him. Brock Purdy here would suck. Daniel Jones in San Francisco, he'd be damn good. So the Giants failed him as much as he failed the Giants. This is a bad marriage, okay? And instead of being miserable and staying together just to stay together, sometimes you got to make a clean break. It's best for both parties at this point in my opinion.
Exactly. And then just real quick, I had people say, well, what do the Giants look for? What does any team look for in a quarterback? And I attended the scouting academy a couple of years ago. So I got through I didn't finish all the positions, but for quarterback, and I only know this because I pulled up my my notes from the classes for a question that I'm actually answering on my mailbag. What are the core traits and what are the position specific traits, and then the X factors that you look for in a quarterback? So the core traits for all positions: mental processing, competitive toughness, athletic ability, play speed, and play strength. Position specific: accuracy, decision-making, progressions, anticipation, poise, arm strength, pocket awareness, mechanics, footwork, mobility. So those of you who like to break down film, take all those points and go through them and say, okay, where does Daniel Jones stack up? Where does Caleb Williams stack up? Where does, Drake May stack up? Just, whatever quarterback you want, use them. And that's how you can kind of get a sense of maybe what NFL teams are thinking. It's not just a question of, I like, Caleb Williams because I'm a USC fan. No, it doesn't quite work that way. And then the other thing you throw in, the X factors. New York is a tough market to play in.
That has to be factored in.
If you had brought in a Baker Mayfield, how do you think Baker Mayfield would have handled New York? Probably
You're right.
Not that well.
That is a factor, especially
that
when
is
you're
a huge factor. And I go back to what Ernie Accorsi told me for my book when they were looking to draft Eli Manning. Nothing bothered Eli. Nothing.
Yeah.
And that's when Accorsi said, look, he checks off all the other boxes for, position specifics and the core traits and the X factors, the biggest of which is, can you handle the market? Because this ain't an easy market to play for.
No, I agree with that. That's definitely a fact. I mean, that should be a factor for every team in terms of, the mental fortitude of a quarterback prospect, but especially in New York. I agree with you. It's constant media pressure. The fans are very divided. They wanted to run Eli Manning out of town after 2 or 3 years. It comes with the territory. It's going to happen. I'm going to tell you right now, we could draft Caleb Williams. If this team's not doing well, they're going to want to run him out of town after year 2. The marriage will be over.
No matter who, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is.
Yeah,
That's
I'm saying any quarterback. Name the quarterback. Yep. So you better have thick skin if you're going to be the quarterback for the New York Giants. And not every player, not just football, any sport in New York, not everybody's meant to play in New York. We've seen it several times in several different football teams. So I completely agree with you. In terms of like the physical skill sets, for me, if I was evaluating a quarterback, what would I be looking for? And what do I know? I'm a fan, but I think processing is a big thing. Throwing with anticipation is a big thing. Having
pre-snap reads are also a big thing.
Pre-snap reads, having the ability to improvise when plays break down, that is a big thing. Always looking down the field. Mm-hmm. Those are things I'd be looking for. I mean, of course, you want the super arm strength like a Josh Allen, but to me, those are the things I'd be looking for.
Yeah, anticipatory throws, because in the NFL, the windows are tight and they close faster than they do in college. You have to throw your receivers open. Like it was like, oh, Giants can't get any separation. Doesn't matter. You have to fit the ball in the tight. That's what an NFL quarterback has to do. That's why it's the toughest position and the biggest jump. You're going against the best defenses in college. You might be going against 4 NFL guys. In the NFL, you're going against 11 NFL guys. So it's always something. It's also the way they respond to adversity. I get it. Listen, there's a lot of talk about, oh, Caleb Williams cried. And then, this article came out that he wanted part ownership, which was a BS article, but people believe anything they read. I mean, anybody can put something out on the internet. It's like, oh, it's on the internet. That has to be true. Not necessarily, but that's why you have your top 30 visits. That's why you visit with these guys. That's what that's about. You find out about them. That's what those visits are. Hey, Caleb, we're very interested in you playing for the New York Giants. What if this happens here? How would you respond to this? What if you're asked this? How do you respond in this situation? We lost 40-0 to Dallas, and it's our biggest rival, or the Eagles, whoever you want to say. They're our biggest rival. We haven't beat them in 3 years. The media is going to say, how do you feel about losing to them again? You came in here, you're expected to beat this team or at least compete, and you haven't competed. What do you think the problems are? How are you going to respond to this or this situation or where this happens?
Right.
That's what that's all about. They know what he does physically. Visiting with him is there a feel of his personality and how he's going to handle this market. And that could be anybody. Right. You also can't just draft a guy because his personality fits New York. You need a little talent there too.
That helps too, sure.
So it's hard. That's why it's hard to play here. Eli, and it's not just Eli. It's hard to find a franchise quarterback. And ask the Jets. The Jets have never, not since Namath. Maybe Kenny O'Brien. Maybe.
Mark Sanchez. I think we've had this conversation before. I think there's like 12 or 13 teams in the NFL where you could say they've legitimately never had a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like in the Super Bowl era, they've never like
the Bears haven't.
There's plenty of teams. And when I say franchise quarterback, I mean I don't count Deshaun Watson with Houston. It was only 4 or 5 years. I'm talking about a guy that was like 10 years was the guy that you knew you could trust. There's almost half the league has never had that. Right. So I think a lot of people took that for granted with Eli Manning, and they're just like, oh, it's going to be simple. We'll just get the next young guy.
I can tell you something I took for granted with Eli Manning, that he was there every week. I really did. Because you just expect him to never get hurt. You just expect him to play every game. And you take, like I said, you don't mean to, but you're human. And you just know he's suiting up. So you take it for granted. And then you get Daniel Jones, who rookie season, injured. Second season, major injury. Or was that 2021? He had this second season. No, he had a little injury in 2020. And then he had a major injury with the neck in 2021 end of the season. Last year was healthy. This year he had another neck injury. Now he tore his ACL. Yep. So it's just amazing. In 5 years, 4 of them, he's dealt with injury. And Eli never dealt with one in your career.
Yep. He got lucky.
And he might be on the bad offensive line. He got hit a lot. Eli got hit a ton at the end of his career because the line was terrible.
Yep. And he kept ticking. So good on Eli for sure. All right, listen, guys, I got to take my first commercial break. Don't go anywhere. If you got questions, pop them into the chat box. We'll start getting to them right after this. Hey, Giant fans, if you're looking for a fun and different way to play fantasy football this season, you need to check out Prize Picks. Just pick 2 or more players, predict their stats, and sit back and see how they perform. It takes less than 60 seconds to make an entry. And best of all, you can turn a few bucks into some nice cash with just the right projections. Prize Picks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app, known for its quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and wide selection of player stats and types. And they offer weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, when each Tuesday Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. So what are you waiting for? Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. And that promo code is LockedOnNFL for your first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Hey, Giant fans, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, everybody, welcome back to Locked On Giants Live. You got Entertainah and BadDog. And yeah, the Giants got a game this week, but we got other things to talk about. Giants related, of course, but we got other things, bigger fish to fry, so to speak. So thank you all for coming in and joining us. Make sure you pop your questions into the chat box. We'll start answering that. And guys, I just want to piggyback off of just something about Eli Manning and the fact that he was such an Iron Man. He actually got lucky a couple times because he did have an ankle injury that he suffered. I think it was in the last game of I forget what season it was, but I remember he suffered a high ankle sprain. And if they had a game the following week, he wouldn't have been able to play. And if I don't remember, I don't think they went to the playoffs that year. I want to say it was 2013, but I'm not sure. And then don't forget, he also had the shoulder issue that, the famous one that, oh my God, he's going to miss time.
In 2007, right.
And he actually came back and was fine. So, he got lucky a few times. Let's not,
of course.
But that being said, Eli also played with plantar fasciitis.
Plantar fasciitis, yeah. That was in like 07, 08, whatever it was.
And he had some other things. He had a back issue that I don't think a lot of people knew about. So yeah, he did take a beating, and just a tough dude. Who also had a degree of luck. So.
Yeah, I think he also was smart when he knew how to take a hit. As crazy as that may sound, like he knew how to take a hit. I think that played a factor too. And he was just tough as nails. Like to be able to, go out there every week in a sport like this, especially in the second half of his career, taking the beating that he was taking. They don't make him like that. I mean, there's a reason he has the second most consecutive starts in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, he should, and too bad McAdoo had to ruin that streak of his. Yeah. I'll never forgive him for that. That just totally ticked me off. But, let's go back to Jones for a second here because, obviously with Jones's contract, they're not going to dump that contract because they're going to take a hit that's going to exceed the cap space they have.
Yeah.
So that being said, I was the one for the record. I asked Stable this week if Jones's knee surgery had been scheduled, and it hadn't as of Wednesday. And the reason why I asked that is because depending on when he has that surgery, now you put him on the clock as to, the rehab. Now, to expect him to be like an Adrian Peterson to be back in 6 months, that's kind of stretching it. But that being said, can you see a scenario where, the Giants draft a rookie this coming spring, they bring Daniel Jones back? Would he be ready for the start of the season? And how compromised do you think he'll be in terms of his athleticism and his running that has kind of made his game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I could just go off of what I've heard, and I've heard that it's not as severe as some other tears. I think I forgot who it was. They were mentioning another quarterback who I think had 3 different tears on one leg, and he was still back within like 9 months. I forgot who it was. So I'm leaning he'll be back ready to start the season next year, or at least close to the start of the season. That's what I'm leaning. But yeah, there's no way of me knowing in terms of how that's going to impact him And you got to think about it from the mental aspect as well as the physical aspect. It's not, you saw it with Saquon Barkley. I think it was more mental than anything else his first year back coming from back from that injury. So, it could certainly, I think, hurt his ability to be a dual threat quarterback next year.
There's also, didn't mean to interrupt you there, but there's also a matter of Saquon also had other damage in the knee that they had to fix.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So you have to look at the degree, is that ACL completely torn or partially torn, or any other ligaments affected? Is the meniscus in place? So the doctors basically got to get in there. Now, Jones said, oh, it's just an ACL, but they got to get in there and they got to really look at things and see what needs to be fixed up. That's going to affect it. And I put Moo's question on the screen there. Why are they waiting so long? Moo, they got to get the swelling down, number one, and they've got to stabilize the knee. So they got to do a little bit of strengthening. They call it prehab. So that's standard practice with ACL injuries. That's why they didn't get the surgery done right away.
Same thing with Barkley. They waited a couple of weeks before Barkley had the surgery too. So.
Almost a month, I think.
Listen, Barkley, in my opinion, Barkley has not been anywhere as near explosive as he was before that ACL tear. It took Robert Griffen's career away from him very early, and when your legs are a big part of what you do and you've torn an ACL, I'm sure it's going to be a mental thing. And that was always my biggest question about Daniel Jones is, can he mentally play this game? And now he's got that to worry about, as well as his neck to worry about and everything else. And I don't know. I mean, it would concern me since his legs are such a big part of his offense. So,
sure.
He's obviously going to be back here next year because they can't get rid of him. But like I said, there's an article coming out, Daniel Jones will be back in 2024. Well, no kidding. The question is he going to be a starter when he comes back? That's the question. Yeah. Not that he's going to be here. He's going to be a Giant because his dead cap's $69 million. They ain't eating that. But there's a rookie quarterback here. That'll be the question. When does Daniel Jones come back? Is he ready for week one? Rookie sits. Or is he not ready for week one? Does the rookie play?
Or do you bring in a vet to man the fort for a few weeks?
Well, you got to make a decision with Tyrod.
Taylor Heineke, somebody like that.
Do you move on from Tyrod? Because Tyrod is going to be a free agent. Yeah. He's got a voidable year. They've got Matt Barkley on the roster. I don't know if you want to necessarily play him, even though he knows the system. So, I mean, they're definitely going to need a backup quarterback. So I can see scenario. And, amazing guy here said, well, Wan'Dale and Saquon came back quickly from ACLs. Not quite amazing guy. Wan'Dale is still being managed with his knee. And if I remember correctly, even though he was cleared right before the start of the season, he didn't really get a whole lot in terms of snaps. So when you say quickly, I'm talking, back to full speed, not gradually ramping up. And Saquon was the same way. They managed him that whole first year coming back off that injury. So it does factor into the equation. Matter of fact, I was talking with Wan'Dale, and Wan'Dale's, he said, the 1 year anniversary of my injury is coming up. And I said, how you feeling? And he says, what a difference. It's almost like that psychological getting over the hump. It's like, okay, I'm out 1 year now. Now my knee is really strong. So, you mentioned the psychological aspect of it, and there's a perfect example of it.
Yeah. I think it was clearly evident with Barkley.
Did Barkley tear his ACL at the beginning of the year in 2020?
Week 2? Week 3 or 2?
So, I think he had like a full year to get back. I mean, he didn't play the end of the year, so he had like a full year to recover before they started playing football again.
And they managed him.
And they still managed him, right?
Yeah. Well, because he was so valuable to them. I think it depends on really, the position and whatnot. But Barkley, and here's the other thing people don't understand. Players, when they're coming off of major injuries, they've got to spend part of their time that they would otherwise spend training doing rehab. And there's only so much, if they're being managed by a trainer, there's only so much time that they're allotted to do their rehab and then to go in and do their training. So that has to factor into the equation. I don't think a lot of people, think about that.
Yeah.
Barkley spoke about
depends on the player. It really does. It depends. Depends on the player. Depends on the person. I mean, Joe Burrow came back from his torn ACL pretty fast because he tore that. November, December? Wasn't it December? His rookie season or the end of November, somewhere in there, and he was back ready to go week one. So, and he was fine. So, I mean, yeah, who knows? It's a big question mark. But the fact that Jones, but one of the best parts of his game is his ability to escape. And when we talk about how bad the offensive line is, and we know he has to be mobile, how much is that going to limit his mobility when he gets back?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a valid question, and all the more reason why, the Giants maybe look to, get another quarterback in here. Besides the fact that if there's one sitting there and Joe Shane likes him, he's making the move. And by the way, I saw I forgot who posted it, but Joe Shane, from what I understand, is scheduled to talk the bye week, early in the bye week. I'm not sure if it's going to be Monday or Tuesday. I have a feeling it's going to be Monday, but don't quote me on that. And I don't know if it's going to be just Shane or Shane and Dable, but he is supposed to talk the bye week.
Maybe you get a little bit of a preview of what we're going to be doing.
Well, he's also going to talk. He also has to talk at the end of the year. So,
yeah.
And at that point we're at week 13, and then 5 weeks later it's the end of the year. No, is it 5 weeks? Yeah, it's 18-week season, but 17 games. Yeah, so 5 weeks later. So we will hear from him, I think. At least that's what I'm told. Now, that could change. I don't know. I don't think he has to talk during the bye, but he definitely has to talk at the end of the year. And a lot of questions. I personally would be more interested in what he has to say at the end of the year, because now we can say, okay, what are you thinking of? And he's always so he does kind of tip his hand a little bit.
He made it as clear as day last year that we were bringing back Daniel Jones.
Absolutely. I mean, Dable was like, dude, what are you doing? You're giving away.
Yeah, this year he hasn't been as transparent. He'll say, what do you think about this season this year? Well, it wasn't good enough. We'll look at it in the off season, and we'll get back at it, and we'll get some guys in here, and enjoy some time off, and have the RTAs, and we'll start looking at the draft, and that's it.
I just this whole team, it's funny. I was asking a couple guys, we were talking about the bye week, and I'm like, are you looking forward to it? And some of them were like, oh, God, yeah, because, it'll be a chance for them to heal some of the bumps and bruises. And some of them were like, yeah, at this point, let's just play through it and, finish up. So it's interesting that there were some different perspectives about that.
Don't extend the season.
No.
Me personally, I can't wait for the bye, and you guys know why I can't wait for the bye.
Me too. I got nothing. I don't got plans like you do, but I can't wait to just not have to worry about watching this team for a week.
Correct.
Well, I'm not going to totally disappear that week. I'm going to have a week's worth of shows that I actually started pre-taping them. I've got a draft preview show. I'm going to have a former NFL strength and conditioning coach on the program, so we're going to talk about the injury situation. I've got a couple of shows that I'm doing, and I've got some great content, I think, that you guys will want to check out, especially the injury show that we're going to do, because I've got a former NFL strength and conditioning coach coming on, and we're going to talk about
awesome.
And this individual would be kind of familiar with what the Giants have done in the past at any rate, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, bye week's coming up, and quite honestly, I can't wait, but for obvious reasons. We all know by now why I can't wait.
We need a breather.
Right, I do. I need a breather. This is a late bye, and it's when they're losing, you get into this rut, and it's like, okay, I got to go back. All right, it's Monday. What do I got to do Monday? I got to talk about the Sunday's game. I got to, what are the opening odds? I got to do this. I got to do that. And it just gets into this, you get into this rut. It's a lot more fun when they win. And I keep telling people this, fans think, oh, the media loves it when the Giants lose because they can rip into them. Not this person.
Just Pat Leonard. Just Pat Leonard.
At the rat.
Just him. He likes it, but
not me. I hate it when
people doesn't seem to like Pat very much.
Well, I'm not commenting on who.
No, you shouldn't.
No, you should. I'm just going by the way Dable calls on him or answers his question. Or same thing in Jordan Randon or Renan, whatever you say his name.
I'm pleading the fifth on this one.
Yeah, as well you should. I can say whatever the hell I want about them.
You can say whatever you want.
I don't work.
Yeah,
they're not my coworkers. I can say whatever the hell I want about them.
Yeah. T asked me if I'm going to Hawaii. No, not for the bye week, T. Too quick of a turnaround. If I go to Hawaii, I'd be going for 2 weeks. So no, it is not Hawaii. Let me see. Big Moo asks, how many more games do you think DeVito will survive? I think until Tyrod Taylor gets healthy and comes off IR. Now, Tyrod's going to miss this week, next week, and I believe the bye week will also count towards his 4-game minimum stay on IR. So I could see Tyrod Taylor, if he is progressing, as they say, he should be back for the Monday night game against Green Bay, which, by the way, I hope that game gets switched with the Jet game. I don't think it will, but you know how I feel about night games. And I just,
especially that game.
They should flex out.
Yeah, like off Monday night. Put the Jets on.
They should definitely flex New York, New England to primetime. The Giants, Patriots, that one, nobody wants to miss that. They shouldn't even tell.
I don't want a primetime game. I hate them. Come on, man.
They should flex it out. Nobody wants to watch the 2-9 Giants against the 3-8 Packers or 4.
Actually, is that a one? I think that New England game's a 1:00 game.
It is. I was joking around saying flex them to nighttime because it's such a great game between two win teams.
Can you imagine? Oh my gosh.
I mean,
that's like the toilet.
Belichick, it's Joe Judge. I mean, don't you want to bring that back? Daniel Jones isn't healthy, but you had 2 guys named Jones. I mean, look at all the, you know.
This week's been a shocker with the primetime games. They're excellent. You had the game last night was a really good. I mean, it didn't end up being a great game, but Bengals Ravens and Monday night you got
Burrow's done for the year.
Yeah, and then you got the Eagles and the Chiefs this week on Monday night. So they actually finally got some good primetime games.
The Taylor Swift Bowl, huh?
Yeah, the Taylor Swift Bowl.
Yeah, where the Swifts get to meet the Kelces.
Yeah,
please make that stop. I know I'm going to.
I think Tyrod should just. I think he should just sit it out the rest of the year. He is not a future of the Giants. Don't you want to see what Tommy DeVito is? Don't you want to see if he can be your backup? I mean, get him some more snaps. Tyrod needs to just. He's 34, 33, 35. How old is Tyrod? He's old for
I think.
Okay, so for an NFL player, that's getting up there. I mean, I'd kill to be 34 again personally, but I think Tyrod. You should just rest. I'm looking right at you. Rest your ribs. You're a free agent. Make sure you're 100% healthy. That way you can get a good contract somewhere else. Maybe even here. Who knows? Just relax. Tommy D's got this. Take it easy.
So.
Don't play.
So.
Don't you don't want to play against the Eagles. It don't matter who plays against the Eagles. We could have Pat Mahomes who would beat that damn team, so it really doesn't matter.
All right, Jordan Samiti asks, does Pugh return next season? Jordan, I don't know. I kind of get the impression he might retire after this year, but I think it's also going to depend on if the Giants want him back. So I wouldn't say it's a slam dunk. I had heard that, he was thinking of retiring after this year because Justin Pugh's got all this, post-career business opportunities that he's getting into. So, and I think he also has a baby on the way, if I'm not mistaken. I think his wife is pregnant. Yep. So that's a good question. I don't know that he's back next year. I would say right now 50-50. Yeah, I got it. Every time I go over to talk to Justin, I want to, talk to him one-on-one. He's always got a line at his locker of media people. I'm like, geez, what do I have to do to make, I'm like, I joke. I'm like, do I have to make an appointment or something? Because I'd be curious about that as well. So,
do you think that Sterling Shepard retires after this year, or you think
I don't think Shep will be back next year?
He won't be with us. I'm saying, do you think he retires?
I could see it. I think
he just got married. I think he's got 2 young girls.
Got married? I don't. Yeah. I know he's got a lady friend. I don't.
I thought he was married. Maybe he's not married. I just saw him on Instagram. I thought he was remarried.
He's had concussion issues.
I don't know. I didn't ask him, but
I'm just thinking he's dealt with a lot of injuries.
You know what? If he's not back as a player, he will be back in some capacity. They love him in there. Everybody loves him. He's just a sweetheart of a guy. I was.
That's why they brought him back. I don't think
I saw a little tidbit.
Let me tell you something. He spends a lot of time with Jalen Hyatt. A lot of time. You know how many times I'll go over to that corner of the locker room, and the two of them are sitting there and they're talking about whatever, life, about plays or whatever. And I'll kind of cozy up and I'll go, what you guys discussing? And so Jalen will start to tell me and Shep will be like, so, and then,
I
ultimately
saw
find out at the top.
Dan Schneer had him on his podcast, and I saw a little tidbit on Twitter, and he said, I actually found this part interesting. He said that during the draft process, he was actually helping the coaches scout some of the wide receivers, and he liked Jalen Hyatt a lot on film. So I think that's kind of maybe a preview of what they may be, potentially making him as a coach.
They didn't take advantage of when Chris Snee offered to do it for offensive linemen.
Yeah.
So maybe now they take advantage of letting Shep scout wide receivers.
Yeah.
I
think that's why they brought Shepard back. I don't think it was to be really a part of the offense. I mean, if push came to shove and they absolutely needed his services, he'd be pressed into action. But I think he was more there as a support, because when he tore his Achilles last year, he was there every week. He was always there helping the young guys out, and I feel like that is what he's going to do. I'm just talking about, like, as a player, I don't think there's really much left for Shepard. If you can't break this lineup, then get yourself out there, and he's dealt with concussion. He's had a lot of injuries. Shep has, which sucks, because I love Shepard coming out.
I love him too. He's awesome. That's my dude.
He just couldn't.
One of my dudes.
And that was
bad,
because he had a world of. I was so happy when they drafted him. I was so mad at the Eli Apple pick. I was so happy about
I hated that pick.
Yeah, I hated the pick.
I hated it. I was like, what the heck are you doing?
I see Mike asking if he was on the Big Blue Banter podcast. I don't think it was the Big Blue Banter podcast. I think he's got a separate podcast where he talks about fantasy football for CBS Sports. Maybe, I don't know. It was a fantasy football podcast that he does, but he was on that one with him.
Right.
It's on his Twitter page.
Tommy G. Tommy G. If you my podcaster Tommy G. I don't know if that's Tommy G from Twitter, who does Tommy Takes. If you are, just pop it in there and let me know. But he asked, can we get a question after 10 plus week, how they like the new slip and slide turf at MetLife? That question was kind of addressed earlier in the year. The feedback we got from players is that it's a softer turf. That said, artificial turf is artificial turf. It's not the same as grass. So the feeling, though, the players seem to like it. But then again, you have some guys who don't know the difference between, the monofilament and the multifilament. So it is what it is. I mean, to me, I always thought the turf was over exaggerated, because look, they're still getting injuries. They're still having injuries, both on, this turf, on other turf, on grass. It's just the nature of the game. Now, again, when I do that injury podcast with that former NFL strength and conditioning coach, we'll see if maybe there's some hints or some insight that he can provide as to why these soft tissue injuries, that's the problem. Not necessarily getting your cleats stuck in the grass, which, unfortunately is going to happen. Saquon got hurt on natural grass. He tore his ACL on natural grass. So I'm going to see, what I can find out. And again, that show will air at some point during the bye week. So just sit tight on the injury things. Trust me, that is a top of my agenda. You guys have been asking me about that for, a long time, and it's coming. It's coming. I promise you. All right. Let's see. What else do we have? The turf isn't settled. Fabian writes the turf isn't settled. Fabian, you've got two NFL teams playing on that turf. They also had concerts over the summer on that turf. The turf is settled, my friend. Let's stop blaming the turf here. To a degree, injuries are going to happen. Broken bones, guys rolling up on your leg. I mean, that could happen on grass.
Yeah.
So, the turf, I'm sorry. I just don't think that's as big of a factor as some fans want to make it. But that's just my, 2 cents there. All right, let's see. Let me ask you guys this, because I know this question came up. If the Giants don't go quarterback in the first round, what position makes the most sense? And then do you maybe look to the second round for a quarterback, or do you just say, you know what, we're just going to roll with Daniel Jones, or we're just going to, sign somebody to until Daniel Jones is ready?
I mean, for me, it's BPA. I mean, obviously, there's so many needs on this team, and I love Marvin Harrison Jr., but there's a lot of good offensive linemen in this draft. Maybe you go edge. I don't know how the high-end edge rushers in this draft, but I mean, I'm generally a guy that believes, especially with a top 5 or 6 pick, you're going to go with either a lineman, a tackle, usually a quarterback, a wide receiver, a corner, or an edge. So it would be one of those premium positions for me and the best guy on your board if you're not going quarterback. And of course, you also explore the possibility of trading back, right? Like if you're not in love with a quarterback there, but maybe somebody loves a guy like Michael Penix or loves a guy like JJ McCarthy, and they're willing to give you something, you look into potential trade down scenarios if you're not going quarterback as well.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be honest. I haven't looked into anything past quarterback because I'm dead set on the fact that's what they're doing. I don't see anything else. I don't know any of the offensive linemen, and I'll be honest. I'd rather just get somebody established than take a chance at this again, because you have your tackles. Unless you're going to say we're going to draft the right tackle, and our plan is we're moving Evan Neal inside. You're not going to take a guard second or third overall. So the only other option is Marvin Harrison Jr. That's
Right.
it. You feel like you can trade back up into the first round and get your quarterback, that you get a quarterback that you didn't want or couldn't get at the beginning of the draft. Maybe that's what you do. Maybe say, okay, we'll take Marvin Harrison Jr. and then we really like Jaden Daniels, and we'll see how far up we got to go to get Jaden Daniels and what we have to give. I'm just, who knows? But I just don't. I think that if they are picking fourth, they might trade up to get a quarterback, because again, this is a business. And if you're a GM and you want to extend your job, the best way to do that is tying yourself to a rookie quarterback. Because if you pass and Jones fails or gets hurt again, you're done.
Yeah, I agree. The only way we're not taking a quarterback, in my opinion, is if we're not in love with one. That's it. And I think it comes down to how many quarterbacks, when Joe Schoen does his evaluations, is he in love with? How many guys is he willing to put his job on the line for? If he doesn't feel there's a quarterback worth doing that where we're picking, well, that's when something like that becomes a possibility. I don't think Joe Schoen's going to reach. I think he's going to take a quarterback if he feels it warrants it. But the good news for us as Giants fans, there's at least 2 that are definitely going to warrant being picked high in the first round. So, and odds are we're probably going to be picking top 2 the way this team looks right now. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you definitely go quarterback, but
it depends on you. If you're picking 5th or 6th, things change. But I don't think we will be.
I think is Penix the left-handed quarterback?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've seen some people say, "Oh, they should look at Penix." You take Penix in the draft, now the blind side becomes the right tackle. So, could you see a scenario? I mean, where they say, "All right, you know what? Penix is our guy," and now what do they do? Like I said, right tackle becomes the blind side tackle.
Yeah.
So does that kind of like neutralize Andrew Thomas? I'm not saying that should necessarily preclude them from taking Penix, but wouldn't that upset the apple cart in terms of the offensive line configuration?
It's funny. We talked about this, and our answer was, if you love Penix, you take him. And you worry about the right tackle. You address that. Whether you want to move Andrew Thomas to right tackle, he played right tackle at Georgia. You want to move him over there. I know you kind of paid him to be your left. You paid Andrew Thomas to be your blind side protector. And when the blind side becomes the right side, maybe that's what they do. Or maybe they go out and they get an established right tackle and they do move Evan Neal inside because they say, okay, well, we're not going to chance it. But if that's your guy, you take your guy and then you have to figure out how not to screw it up. That's the GM's job. I don't think Evan Neal would be his blindside protector. I really don't. But you can't. If Penix is your guy, you can't go, well, God, we love him.
No.
But Evan Neal's there. Now it prohibits us from taking Michael Penix.
Yeah,
I think they would just address it. If they take him, if they love him. And I love Michael Penix. I've loved Michael Penix for years. And people always say, oh, he tore his ACL twice, because they don't understand the story. He's not coming off a torn ACL. He did that when he was 18 years old. The doctor told him, you're coming back too soon. He didn't listen, and he tore it again because it wasn't completely healed. That was on him. And the shoulder injury, whatever. This was years ago in Indiana. And they're like, oh, he's a 6-year senior. Well, he's got experience. He's 23. He's not 33. And if you watch Penix play, he's got one of the strongest arms in the draft. He is a leader. He is a winner. He will get in your face in the sideline. That man wants to win. That is the type of attitude that you're like, okay, God, people don't like Caleb Williams because he's a diva. Well, I can tell you this. You watch Michael Penix, you'll see he's the complete opposite of that personality-wise. He's very quiet. He's not very brash. He's not flashy. The man can play. So I love Penix. Don't matter what I love. It matters what Shane loves. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we said the last couple of times we've been asked that is, I get the point, Patty. Like, yes, ideally you don't want to have to move Andrew Thomas, but at the end of the day, the team, it's about the quarterback. And if you identify that that's a quarterback you're willing to put your job life on the line for, your career on the line for, you do what you got to do to make things right for that quarterback, but you make sure that you get him in the building. So that's my outlook on it. I personally don't think we'll take Penix. I think they'll go with one of the other two guys that everybody's been talking about. But hey, things change leading up into the draft, and he's certainly, like BadDog said. I mean, you watch the guy. The one thing that really stands out to me whenever I watch a Washington game and I watch Penix play, and obviously the arm strength is what everybody says, but it's the types of throws he makes. You don't see it in most collegiate games in terms of and they're short throws. They're far hash to sideline throws where you're talking they're 8 yards down the field, but it's how quickly he gets it there to the wide receiver. It's not, you don't see it every day. So the arm strength for me, it's not so much the deep throws for Penix. It's just the zip on his throws, the velocity on his throws. That's what really stands out to me when I watch Penix play.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Moo asked about Tibbs. Is he still in the concussion protocol? No, he cleared it, as did Hyatt. Both of them are not on the injury report. The injury report, final injury report, Neal and Adoree Jackson both declared out. They're still Jackson's in the protocol. Neal that ankle is messed up. I mean, I think he's still walking around with a crutch. So he's potentially, I wonder if he comes back this season. And then Andrew Thomas was on the injury report, listed with a knee injury. He is questionable, but Tibbs is good to go. So those are the only 3 players that got injury designations on the Friday injury report. Not bad, right? Considering they had that long, injury list. So yeah, that's that. And by the way, DeVito not only had the shoulder, but he was also listed as having a knee issue. I noticed that today. I was like, what's up with that?
Yeah.
So kids getting bounced around, but
it's right in.
For sure. All right, let's see. We got some other questions. Otherwise, I'll take my final break because we're going to go till 9:30 because Dog's got to do he's got to do his Lakers show. So yeah, let me do my last commercial break. Put your questions in the chat box. If I haven't answered them, just keep popping them in there because the chat rolls so fast that sometimes I miss them going back and forth between screens. So we'll take this final break and then we'll come back and we'll answer some more of your questions. Hey, Giant fans. So it never fails. You're watching a game and then you suddenly get a rumble in your stomach. But with so few precious minutes in between plays and quarters, often there's barely enough time to run to the fridge and heat something up to munch on. Well, now you don't have to, thanks to DoorDash. Whether you're craving pizza, wings, tacos, burgers, you name it, and DoorDash can bring it straight to your door so that you don't have to miss a second of your favorite programming. For years, I've trusted DoorDash to deliver freshly made meals from my favorite restaurants, whether I'm at home or I'm on the road, and they've never let me down. DoorDash has allowed me to support my favorite small business stores like the Food Architects. And DoorDash doesn't just deliver meals. They get groceries and snacks and incidentals delivered from local drugstores and convenience stores as well. You get what you ordered or they will make it right. And you can save on all your deliveries with a monthly Dash Pass membership. That's more than pays for itself after just a couple of deliveries. There's never been a better time than now to join DoorDash. As for a limited time, you can get up to 50% off your first DoorDash order, up to $10 when you spend $15 or more on that order. Download the DoorDash app and enter the promo code LOCKED23 at checkout. Again, that promo code is LOCKED23 at checkout on the DoorDash app. Offer subject to change. Terms apply. All right, everybody, welcome back. I had to run a DoorDash ad considering it's funny. I didn't have dinner tonight. Wasn't hungry for dinner. Had a decent, actually I had a chicken sandwich for lunch, and I just have not been hungry. And I'm saying to myself,
we always get into the food talk after the second break.
Because your father, Papa Guzzo, said he had lasagna tonight, and I said, "Oh man, now I'm wanting lasagna." But it's too late for me to order that. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, my husband wants to go for burgers tomorrow. He wants to go to this one eatery. And I'm like, why do you want to go there? He goes, they make the best burgers. We got to go there. And now I'm sitting here, and ever since your father said that he had lasagna, I'm like, now I want lasagna. So thanks, Papa Guzzo. You put.
I always want lasagna. You can't go wrong with lasagna.
Oh, you can't go wrong. Yeah.
By the way, now that we brought up food for a quick minute, what's your? Do you have any obscure, non-traditional dishes that you have for Thanksgiving? I'm having pasta on Thanksgiving. Obviously, I'm having turkey as well, but my brother's making pasta.
Baked ziti. I've done baked ziti.
Yeah,
I've done baked ziti. Now, my husband's a traditionalist, so like for Thanksgiving, he wants turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, gravy, jellied cranberry, not the chunky kind. I like the chunky kind. So yeah, he, the rolls, the whole 9 yards. And me, I don't mind having my turkey with ziti because I grew up in an Italian household. Christmas is where we argue because he believes it should be a Christmas ham. And in my household, when we were growing up, we had lasagna or baked ziti or Sunday sauce or something like that.
If you're Italian, that's what happens. It's part of every dinner.
I keep trying to tell him, and my husband's not Italian, and he's like, no, we do a ham on it. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, we Spongy will bring a bunch of dishes. So there's definitely ziti. Baked ziti is part of it. And ham is also a part of it. My brother-in-law's mother brings ham. All I can eat on that day is turkey and ham anyway, because it's not my cheat day. So I don't splurge on Thanksgiving. That's really what I eat. I just have turkey, a little bit, and a little bit of ham, and that's it. Now, if I want something, I bring it home and I eat it Saturday. And that's usually just the pies. And candied yam. God, I am a sucker for sweet potatoes, candied yam. So I freaking
with the marshmallows.
Love.
I don't like
yams, man.
I hate that, man.
Patty,
really?
we can't be friends anymore, Patty.
Wow.
I freaking love candied yams. The brown sugar, the marshmallows, the syrup. Oh my God.
My husband loves it. I can't eat it.
He's got good taste, Patty.
You got to like stuffing, right? Stuffing, you can't go wrong.
I do like stuffing. Absolutely.
Gravy, stuffing, the traditional. You can't.
The traditional stuff. I mean, it's all good. I mean, I'm hosting Thanksgiving this year, so I already got the roasted turkey, the trimmings and all that stuff. But my husband's like, okay, I get a can of the jelly cranberry sauce, and my brother's coming over. He wants a can too, so 2 cans right there. The jelly cranberry sauce for the 2 guys. And then my sister-in-law and I, we like the chunky stuff. So we've got like an orange zest cranberry, which should be good. So I'm telling you, I'm going to go to bed hungry talking about food. But thank you. That's because I had to run the DoorDash.
Pumpkin pie, pecan pie.
I don't like pumpkin.
That's amazing.
I'm not a pumpkin pie fan.
You don't like pumpkin pie?
I do not.
Now what? Now what's? Now I'm trying to get at.
So no candied yams and no pumpkin pie.
I think it's a texture thing for Patty because it's a similar texture with the pumpkin pie and the
don't like it. I don't like anything pumpkin. Sorry.
Are you kidding me? You got to throw some whipped cream on there. You're good to go.
What about pecan pie? What about pecan pie? That's great.
Pecan I can eat. I like pecan.
God. It's just a bowl of sugar and pecans.
I try not to eat it because, if I had pecan pie, I'm going to fall asleep in like 20 minutes after I eat it. But truth be told, I like fruit pies, so I like cherry, apple.
Cherry pie is great.
My husband likes cream pies. So he was talking about, he wants a Boston cream or he wants a key lime pie or a chocolate cream pie. I'm like, yeah, that's too sweet for me.
Kentucky bourbon pie is a big one for us.
He and I also disagree on cake. He's a big yellow cake with chocolate icing. I like chocolate cake with white icing. He's like, are you crazy?
not a big cake guy. I like pies better.
I'm much more of a pie guy. I like both, but I'm definitely much more of a pie
You're
guy.
definitely not key lime pie. You're not getting a lemon meringue, or you don't put sour fruit in a pie. No, I just can't do key lime or lemon meringue. It's sour. It's supposed to be sweet. Pie's supposed
There's
to be
this raspberry. There's this great raspberry tort that Wegmans makes that I absolutely love. It's mixed in with fruit, strawberry, and stuff like that, and I love it.
Rhubarb pie is good.
No, I don't like that. I don't like raspberry. I don't like anything with seeds. Just not a big fan of that.
Did you eat anything?
Do I what?
Said you eat anything?
Look, what do you think? I'm Ryan Dunleavy. Ryan Dunleavy's got some weird, well, actually, I should say unusual taste. Like, I don't think he likes turkey. I mean, there's a lot of
people. You know, it's funny, Patty. A lot of people
he's never had a salad in his life.
A lot of people in my office said that they don't like turkey, and I'm like, what the hell?
It's dry.
Like turkey
because it's dry.
No, but that's what the gravy is for. You put the gravy on it,
right?
Or you fry it. If you get a fried turkey, turkey is good.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I did not like turkey, but. Yeah, no, I'm Patty. I'm just teasing you.
I mean, I would take
the way I eat. Nobody's more picky than I am, for crying out loud. I mean, I eat the same 4 things every day in my life. So not because I don't like other things. This is the way I live my life.
Oh, see, now we're talking about. We can never.
You did it.
Actually,
Chris, your dad did that. Papa Guzzo, this is your fault. This segment brought to you by Papa Guzzo and his homemade lasagna.
See, Papa Guzzo, what you started.
Don't talking about food because that's
before we started airing, and all I can think of is man, that must have been some lasagna he had. Now I want it. Papa Guzzo, you'll have to send me the recipe. I want to see if it matches what my nonna used to do.
There you go.
So, yeah. All right. Let's get back to some football talk here because that's what people are here
Actually,
for.
can we just keep talking about food? That's a lot better than the Giants story.
It is, if we're being honest. We should do a 2-hour podcast next week on food.
Food gives me great joy. The Giants have not given me great joy this year.
No, I agree. I mean, we can talk about anything else but the Giants, but I think a lot of people are here for
they're not here for the big GD talk. That's okay.
And nobody cares about my concert hopping or anything like that, which is going to be epic. I can't wait for that. But all right, let's see. Amazing Guy wants to know, how will Giant fans react to winning games down the stretch?
Probably upset, if we're being honest. Most Giant fans.
Probably.
Indifferent.
Yeah. That's how I will react. Indifferent. I'm not going to be excited or, devastated either way.
I mean, I know a lot of people want the Giants to tank. They're not going to tank. Gable and ownership, they don't believe in it.
Well,
and I know, but I mean, if you think about it, given the personnel that they have in there, the tanking's kind of naturally built in anyway.
That's what I mean. They don't need to. They're 2-8. They got their 3rd-string quarterback in there, and everybody's hurt. I think Barkley should take the rest of the year off. If I'm being serious, he's still in a free agent season. You don't want him to get hurt, or he don't want to get hurt, right? So
his ankle he still has a bum ankle.
Relax. Saquon, you and Tyrod take the rest of the year off.
Yep.
We'll take care of you at the end of the year.
Give him a bonus.
Absolutely. But they're going to ride him. Which again, I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, you didn't ride him in the beginning of the year to help settle down that offense.
Patty,
now,
gut feeling, is he back here next year?
I don't think he's going to get I don't think he's going to get the type of deal he probably wanted to get. I could see him back on I could see it. I think it's right now 50-50 because he's another year older. He's had another ankle injury. And it just seems like the Giants are going to try and run this guy, it's because he is their offense. I could see them, and they can also tag him. Don't forget.
You're right.
So, yeah, I could see it.
In what capacity do you think?
I think he'll be back because I don't think he's got a lot of value elsewhere. To be honest with you, because of all the things you just said.
Yeah,
he's going to be 27. He suffered another injury this year. He plays the running back position. He's more valuable as a Giant than other teams, and he's a very good player. but teams are going to look at that, and I don't think any team's going to be willing to give him a really long contract offer. That's at least my prediction. And he's valuable to the Giants. He's the face of the team. He's a guy that can help a young quarterback. I think he's going to retire a Giant, to be honest, at this point.
The way I look
I
at
can
It's
see
going to be a
that.
responsible contract.
when does he hit free agency?
When?
Yeah,
If they
when
don't
does-
tag him again this year, he'll hit it the following year.
So they'd have to tag him. When can they tag him? Like they can't negotiate till January, till the season's over, right? They can't negotiate tag till,
Right.
So when can they tag him?
when the tag window opens up, I don't know the dates, but there's a
Okay.
window that opens up.
But there's like a period of time before he
I
hits
think,
free agency.
I
where they
think
can-
it's right around the time of the combine. If I'm
It was
not
March.
mistaken.
Yeah, it was March, I think, was the deadline last year.
So when does he?
It
hit
was
free
early
agency?
March.
Early March,
I can
yeah.
look it up if you want, but let me
I'm
see.
just curious because I'm trying to think of like when they'd have to make the decision to tag him, or
Let me see if I can get it for
he
you.
hit free agency. Like free agency's in March, right?
Okay, hold on. I'm going to see if I can give it to you. All right. The tag window is February 20th to March 5th. The scouting combine is February 27th to March 4th. So they would need to make a decision by March 5th if they're going to designate him as a franchise tag player again.
Okay, but they can negotiate with him.
They can
Between,
negotiate with him. Yeah. I mean,
between
once
them.
the
Okay,
season is
that's what I was trying to figure out. So they'd have 2 months to
So
negotiate.
let me see. Hang on a second. Roster. I'm just looking at the special deadline dates. Or January 15th is the date when college underclassmen need to apply. Beginning this date, yeah, they would probably do it. I would say after the season is over, they can do it, but I'm not sure if they have to wait until after the final like game is played. You know, like the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
They'll probably have discussions. I mean, I know.
Well, they extended
Usually-
Logan Ryan in season a few years ago, right? Didn't they? In like
Yeah,
Christmas. Day,
yeah, but he
But he wasn't on the tag, right?
Yeah, he was already in on a contract.
Oh,
This
it was an
thing- that was a
extension.
little
You're right. He
different.
was already under
Yeah.
contract. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're going to have some time to do it. What I'm curious to see is if he's going to have the same contract advisory team, you know, with the CAA guy and the Rock Nation gal, or is he going to go with one or the other?
I
Last I checked,
think
they
the
were
Giants
both.
are going to let Saquon see what he's worth. That's what I think will happen, but I don't think he's going to be worth a lot more than what the Giants are willing to give. That's my prediction. I think I think they'll do right by Saquon. They'll be like, listen, we tagged you last year. We won't force it on you this year. Go out there, see what you're worth. And if a team offers him a big deal, he'll sign there. But I don't think it's going to happen. So I think he's going to be back.
So
I can
you
see
think
him
it's
doing
the
that.
free agent market?
I think they're going to let him hit the free agent market, but I don't think he's going to get a big offer.
I don't
No.
know about that. I could see them putting the tag on him again.
Yeah, and then try to negotiate after the tag
Because
or
think
something.
about it. If you're bringing in a young quarterback, wouldn't you want to have a running game?
No, I
decent running
agree.
game
I
to
think
put some of the
ideally you bring
onus
him
off of
back.
them?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right, we're back to a food question here. Little Caesar asked, what food option would each of you add to the stadium concession stand? I'm going to punt on this one because I don't eat the stadium food. We get press box food. Now, if you want to ask me about that, that's a different story. But I don't even know what the stadium what they offer, to be honest with you. So
Yeah, to be honest, Caesar, I usually go to at least a game or two a year. This year I haven't because they've been so bad. I don't normally eat in the stadium because I eat before I go in. I think that's what most fans do when they go to a football game. I mean, when I've gone, I got quick food. If I'm hungry, I'll get like chicken fingers. So I haven't really explored the stadium. But from what I've seen, it's not the same food options that you would get if you went to Yankee Stadium or Citi Field. It's not near the same caliber. It's pretty
Right,
cut and
those are more
dry.
extravagant stuff.
Yeah, hot
Yeah.
dogs, sausage and pepper, hamburgers. It's like basic.
Yeah.
So I would probably add, I don't know, maybe like some of transfer the food they got over at Citi Field to MetLife.
Yeah.
They got a great food selection.
Yeah, I really don't want to buy cardboard nachos and cheese whiz for $14.95. So same thing. I wouldn't eat in the stadium. I'd eat beforehand because just it's ridiculously expensive. But and again, the thing is, like me, I'm a big veal guy, so give me veal and peppers, right? But how good would veal and peppers be at a freaking MetLife Stadium? So
Yeah. Yeah.
But
They do have some good stuff. They do have sausage and peppers and meatballs and stuff like that.
the veal is
Some chicken dishes. Brian Rogalski says, "How do we get press box food?" Brian, I don't know that you would want the press box food. I don't mean to nitpick. I'm thankful for what's put out, but all right. So let me tell you what we usually get. All right. I know you guys, if you follow Connor Hughes, you see what the Jets put out every day for their media. The Giants, for a 1 o'clock game, you have brunch. So you have sandwiches, a variety of sandwiches that are pre-made, and then you have an omelet station, or you can go and you can get I call them the fake eggs, because they're made from a mix. So they have that, and then they have bacon, sausage links. Sometimes they have little mini waffles, or sometimes it's French toast. And then they have fruit, and then bagels and croissants and stuff like that. So that's usually for a 1 o'clock game. For a 4 o'clock game or a night game, it's usually been sandwiches this year. Halftime, they give us another meal. So halftime, it could be anything from chicken fingers with waffle fries, which I just will not touch. Or you can have, let me see, what else have they had? They've had Mexican. So you could have tacos if you want with the churros.
They actually have the tacos at Citi Field are great. I don't know how they are at MetLife. No bueno.
I try not to touch the food at halftime because it's junk. I mean, and not only that, but it's weird. The times, why eat just for the sake of eating? You eat because you're hungry.
Right.
So, I'll eat the breakfast in the morning because I the omelet station. So I have a nice power omelet. Dog, you'd be proud of me with the omelets that I have made up for me, with a lot of vegetables and stuff like that, and a little bit of cheese. But
be right back.
After that, nah.
Not for you.
And yes, they do have Pepsi products in the press box.
Of course they do.
I saw Tommy G asked about that. Matter of fact, it's funny. A lot of times I'll text a photo over to my husband and my brother and my sister-in-law, and I always have my drink, whatever drink I'm drinking. It's in a medium Pepsi cup. So they kind of make a joke about that. They're like, "Oh, the medium Pepsi's back." And normally
the funniest thing about the medium Pepsi thing was the cups they gave weren't even medium. They were like they looked like complimentary cups.
Yeah. And there are other things like for those, I don't know if anybody's interested in this, but since we're on the topic, the TV network people get different food than we get. The boxes, like you have the owner's box, the spotters boxes, the announcers boxes, they get different stuff too. So yeah, it's just, it's typical stadium food. And look, I've always been the type where you put it out, I'm not going to sit there and complain about it. If I don't like it, I don't touch it. I mean, I know some people sit there and they complain about the food they get. That's not me. If I go to your house, if you invite me over to your house and I don't like what you're eating, I just won't touch it, or I'll pick at it. I'm not going to say, ew, I'm not going to, I think that's absolutely, rude.
Of course.
But that's just me.
No, I'm with you on that. I usually eat it no matter what. If I go over somebody's house, no matter how bad it may be, I find a way to finish it.
You would like our beef brisket that we made. If you're a beef brisket fan,
oh, fantastic!
I've got a recipe with homemade barbecue sauce. You would love it.
I think I remember you telling me about your homemade barbecue sauce.
Yep, we make the secret ingredient of cinnamon. Put cinnamon on the brisket. Yep. Oh yeah, makes a big difference. All right, Sean Jackson asks, best case scenario for the Giants is the best case scenario for the Giants to lose games competitively, have the younger players improve and stay healthy, and finish with the first or second pick in the draft. Yeah, that would be an ideal scenario. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, that's the best case scenario is we get the first pick in the draft. Even though as a fan, I can't bring it to myself to be like excited to root for the team to lose. If you're asking me from like an unemotional standpoint, like, yeah, that's the best case scenario right now for this team is, like you said, the young players play good down the stretch. They get better, and we miraculously finish with the first overall pick.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
Oh, no. then that makes going to the combine even more important,
Well, then the whole offseason, the whole draft content. I mean, obviously, you're going to talk about the second and third and fourth round guys, but the conversation is just going to be, is it May or is it Caleb? Like that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, but and then like I said, you go to well, I would go to the combine. It's funny because I'm also trying to get into on the Super Bowl this year because I want to go because it's out in Vegas, and plus I haven't done the Super Bowl in so long. I want to make sure that I still remember how to do it. It's a little different covering a Super Bowl than it is covering the weekly games and stuff like that. But yeah, I would think the combine would be important because now it's like, okay, what are they thinking? And to talk to some of these guys and get a feel for them. I think back to when Daniel Jones was coming out, and I don't know how I knew this, but I remember standing at his podium and I took a picture of him. And I said, this is going to be your next quarterback, Giant fans. And I had a bunch of people firing back. What are you, crazy? They're not taking him. No way. I just knew from listening to him, and then at the time listening to, Gettleman and Shermer, who were at the podium. I knew. I didn't know that he was going to be the sixth, the first of their 2 first-round picks, but I just knew. So sometimes you can pick stuff up by just, when you're at the combine,
getting a feel, a vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when Saquon came out, everybody knew that. I mean, that was like the worst kept secret ever.
Yeah. Dave Gettleman literally said he was touched by the hand of God before we picked him.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Good old Dave.
And I think if I remember, didn't Saquon have like a Giants like hoodie on or jersey on like right before the draft or something?
I think so.
Yeah, like the Giants sentiment or something like that.
I think you're right. It might have been a hat or something.
Yeah,
they sent him something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but yeah. But I mean, you can pick up a lot at the combine. It's the combine's kind of interesting to cover, but if you go around to podium, and plus the agents are all there, they all have to come in. So you hang out by their meeting room, and you can find out a lot of interesting stuff. I find that very worth the trip to make, even though people are like, oh, it's Indianapolis. I happen to like Indianapolis. I think it's a great city. I like the fact that everything's connected by skywalks. I don't have to go outside in the cold, I like it. So that's
didn't Dave Gettleman say they just watched one series at the Senior Bowl and they were sold on Daniel Jones?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. So
I remember when that happened and that leak, and I was like, "There's no way. That's all smoke." I didn't even know who the hell he was. I didn't even know who the hell he was until that came out. Then I had to look because I'm like, "Who the hell is Daniel Jones? Duke?" I'm like, "Duke, Dave Brown." That's the first thing I thought of. I'm like, "Why are we taking a Duke quarterback?" And no, we're still probably wondering why we took a Duke.
I had heard that other teams were interested in taking Daniel Jones, but I wonder if they were doing that.
Maybe they pulled the
guys. I don't know. I mean, supposedly there were 2 other teams that wanted him that were drafted.
I think Washington did. I think
Washington supposedly did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, this is a good one from Walking Free 2019. If the possibility of trading for Josh Allen is at a fair value, do you pull the trigger? I don't think the Bills would trade him. And quite honestly, I mean, Josh Allen's a good quarterback, but I think I would want to start with a rookie quarterback, put him on a rookie deal, especially,
we were asked this question last night, and I see both sides of it, but it's kind of like a hypothetical that's silly to answer because, like you just said, the Bills aren't trading him.
I don't think they are.
If you have a top 4 or 5 quarterback who's still young and they're not trading him. They're not, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So, but I do get the argument to go side towards Allen because what you're getting. You have a bona fide star at the quarterback position.
And then and then as Cy Guy Bry says, how are you going to afford both of them? You got to keep Daniel Jones on the roster.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think if you go to add another quarterback, you have to get a guy who was on his rookie deal. It's how it should have been, to be honest with you. If you're doing a legitimate rebuild, put him on a rookie deal.
When we talked about this last night, my thing was, why would you go out and get Josh Allen if you're the Giants? You're not a quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl. If That was the one thing. If you're sitting there going, if the Giants got to where they did last year, and Daniel Jones, did not have a good game, or he failed again, or just didn't have a good overall year, and you're thinking, okay, listen, in spite of Daniel Jones, we got all the way to the division round again, or we beat the Eagles, but we just need the quarterback to get us over the top. Then you make that move. But every Giants fan will tell you, they didn't build around Daniel Jones. We have no line. We have no depth. We need more edge rushers. We need more wide receivers. We need a tight end. We need this, we need that. As good as Josh Allen is, our team would be better. There's no question. They're winning a Super Bowl, because that is the question. And if you're paying Josh Allen all that money, well, you can't put money into the other positions. You get a quarterback on a rookie,
and you're surrendering draft capital too.
Money. Correct. More money.
Yes,
a lot more money paying a guy, whatever the heck they get. I don't know what.
My argument against it would be, I'm 50-50 on it, but again, it's never going to happen. But I think the biggest argument against it is, well, if you put Josh Allen on this team, are we as good as the Buffalo Bills? And my answer is unequivocally no.
Nope.
And he can't win a Super Bowl with the Buffalo Bills. And then your argument would be, well, it's the NFC compared to the AFC. We're nowhere near the Philadelphia Eagles if you put Josh Allen on this football team. Nowhere near it. We still can't block their pass rush, and we still can't get after their quarterback with their offensive line.
Same with Dallas.
So that's, I think, the biggest argument. Like, even if you brought Josh Allen in, you're talking at least probably 2 or 3 years before you have a chance to win a Super Bowl. And at that point, he's 30, 31. His style of play, is he still the same quarterback? I think the safer route. And again, it could blow up in your face. It could be a complete bust. Caleb Williams could be horrible. He could be. It happens. But you take the shot, I think, with the rookie quarterback.
And to Brandon Swan's point, how many rookie quarterbacks fizzle out and stink in the NFL? And he would rather have Josh Allen.
I think that's a fair point.
That's a fair point, absolutely. But how are you going to afford him and Daniel? You're going to have you'd have to include Daniel in the trade. It would have to be a trade like when the Rams traded Goff to the Lions, where everybody said, "Oh, they just took on Goff to because of the salary purposes." And obviously Goff actually ended up turning out better than Stafford long term, which is ironic about that trade. But it would have to be a trade like that where they take on Daniel. But if you did that, you'd probably have to also give up even more draft capital if they're going to take on that salary. So at that point, it's like, just draft the quarterback.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would take my chances.
Yeah, you got it. You're still in a rebuild.
Yeah.
You're not rebuilding with Josh Allen. He's not a young guy. You're putting all that money into that position when you need so many other positions. And Chris made a great point. They can't even get to the AFC Championship, or can they get there? Did they get there? I don't.
They got there once. They got there once. Yeah.
So, but they can't get over the hump. And this is with Josh Allen. This is with Stephon. We don't know Stephon.
And they have a great defensive line. Like, they have a very good team.
Yeah, we don't have that here. So
yeah,
like, we'd be better, but we wouldn't be good enough to compete even with him.
We'd be a playoff team probably, but not much more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you just do the rebuild right. I mean, I'm tired of these shortcuts.
That's exactly it, Patty. Do the rebuild right.
Yeah, too many shortcuts. I mean, Gettleman ruined the salary cap trying to take shortcuts to build a dream team. And if it didn't work for the Eagles and it didn't work for the Giants a couple times that they tried it, why they thought it would work, that last time, I have no idea. But just go and do it the right way. And that means putting a rookie quarterback on his contract, on a rookie deal, and just building around him, getting what you need. So, guys, we have a couple more minutes before Dog's got to jump and do his Lakers stuff. Do we want to even bother with a prediction for Sunday's game? You haven't really talked about it all.
I think it's going to be closer than people think. I really do. I'm in a knockout pool, and I do. Now it's far, so it's deep in the season. So I'm really taking it seriously. Like, what should I do this week? And everybody's taking Washington this week because you can only pick one team, every week. And once you pick them, you can't pick them again. So a lot of people like Washington's not very good. They're playing the Giants. Take Washington. I am not that confident that Washington. I think they'll win, but I am not. I don't think it's a shoo-in like the spread suggests. Our history against Washington, divisional opponent, I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of a mental thing. I actually think it's going to be a competitive game. I think Washington will win, but I think it'll be a competitive game. I think it's within 6 or 7 points.
Oh, I hope it's competitive.
I think it will be.
I don't think it's competitive at all. I think Washington still has a chance to make the postseason. I think that the last time the defense balled out and they really beat the hell out of Sam Howell, this is not the same defense. Sam Howell has had games where he's looked really good. He's had games where he's looked really bad. I think this is a game where he looks really good. We could barely, even though Tyrod Taylor moved the ball, we only scored 14 points. This is Tommy DeVito. Washington's defense is halfway. It's not great, but it's not the worst.
They also lost.
I can see. Yeah, they did, but I don't think that it doesn't really matter. Like if you get to Tommy DeVito or not, are you worried about Tommy DeVito beating you deep? Like the Giants don't have any no explosion there. They're gonna do exactly what everybody else is. They're gonna load the box. They're gonna stuff Saquon and put them in third and long. Go ahead, kid. Take your best shot. I think the Commanders. They're not going to score 49 like Dallas did, but I could see them winning this game like 27-10, 27-7. I see something like that.
I think
it's in Washington. It's in Washington this time. So.
Yeah, I think I'm more like 2013, but I think Washington wins.
Yeah,
I think Washington. Look, I said I can't pick the Giants the rest of the way. I'm sticking with that. I think Washington wins. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I mean, gosh, I hope it's not a blowout. I'm going to say Washington wins 23-13.
So you're kind of in between me and BadDog.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just following suit here. I don't think the Giants are going to score more than 20 points. I'd be surprised if they score more than 20 points the rest of the way.
They won't.
I really would. I mean, look, the season is just, it needs to end. I hate to say it, but they need to press the reset button and get this thing straightened out. And, I know some of the media members on the Twitter said, 7 more weeks of this, and some of the fans jumped on them. But really, guys, we're not doing it to be mean. It's just reached that point where, it's not fun covering up.
It's let's just get on with it and find out where this is going.
I'll leave you with this, right? License plate guy. You know a license plate guy. Who doesn't know license plate?
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? He's the most optimistic guy for the Giants that I know. He believes they're going to win all the time. He is the most positive Giants fan I've seen.
Yep.
He tweeted, "I'll be happy with the first or second pick." When that happens, that's it. Embrace the tank. If LPG is going to be happy, and he went on to say something else in another tweet, pretty much like, I will never root for them to lose, but I'd rather them lose and change than continue to lose.
Right.
So
that's all you need to know.
When you hear it from him, that tells you where the season is. That's how you know the season's been really bad. When they broke him, of all people, okay, it's embrace it. Embrace the tank. Just accept it. You don't need to embrace it. You need to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to have a quarterback in April. And then we'll see if things change. Like I said, they may not be better, but they'll be different. And you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's insanity. We've discussed that a million times.
Yeah.
Way outside the box this time. Way outside. Completely different.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope that it's at least a competitive game, because if it's another blowout, oh my gosh.
Well, if it's another blowout, we got this guy right here.
Yes, I saw your video with the bag. I was laughing. I know I shouldn't have been laughing, but I was like, damn, he said he was going to bring out the bag, and he did.
Got the bag.
Yeah. I'm waiting for Traina to bring out the bag.
I might at some point this year. It might get that bad. I might, but we'll see.
Oh, I wish I could, but I don't think I don't know if they would allow that on lockdown. I'd have to find out. But
I have a little bit more leniency than you do. It's just I'm not a professional. I'm a professional idiot. I can do whatever I choose to do.
I'll tell you guys do all right. So, all right, listen. Dog's got to get out of here because he's got the Lakers, who I hope are winning. I haven't followed basketball, so
they're 6-6, so they're whatever.
Okay, whatever. So everybody, thank you so much for popping in with us. It was a blast as always. tune in next week to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'll have more stuff for you. Don't forget the bye week. I've got some really, really cool programming, and I'll start telling you about it as I finalize the different shows. But we definitely have a draft show that's coming up. The injury show that I mentioned, you'll want to see that. I promise you, you will want to see that. And there'll be a few other surprises along the way during the bye week. So I'll have all that recorded to drop while I take the week off from Giants football that bye week, going concert hopping. So, all right, everybody. Have a great night, great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good night, guys.